example 2c, describe how the domain of f of x can be restricted so that the inverse of f of x is a function, and show this result on a graph. So when we graphed f of x is a parabola, it's a function, it passes the vertical line test, but its inverse fails the vertical line test. So what we want to do basically is graph half of the parabola, whether it's the top half or the bottom half of our inverse, doesn't matter, but it would pass the vertical line test then. So in order to do that, we really are looking at either the right-hand side, which corresponds to the top half, or the left-hand side of f of x, which would correspond to the bottom half of the inverse. So let's just make a little bit of notes about that right now here for part C. So we need to draw half the parabola, so f of x passes the horizontal line test. And I'm saying horizontal line test because I'm referring to f of x graph. So for this to pass the horizontal line test, I can either draw the left side or the right side. So let's say I draw the right-hand side of that parabola. We're going to do that then. So I'm drawing this exact shape, just the right-hand side here. And 3 and 7. And we'll draw that. So now we're going to label this f of x, but we only drew the part to the right, meaning x is greater than or equal to 0. So what we've done here is this, we've restricted the domain of f of x, and now it passes the horizontal line test. This corresponds to the inverse on the top. So that would mean that we have restricted the domain of f of x. It's always your original function. So the domain, writing it with the proper notation, would be x is greater than or equal to 0, where x is the element of all real numbers. Now I want to draw the corresponding inverse. So again, that's the top half. If you forget, you can switch the points. -2, 0, -2 becomes -2, 0, 1, -1 becomes -1, 1, and then you get the idea of what is going to happen. 3, 7 becomes 7, 3. You can turn your paper sideways to help you. Now what's really important is the labeling, and that we're drawing this correctly. This now passes the vertical line test, so this is now called f -1x. So it's very important that we now consider that a function, and if it's a function, we need to label it according using the correct function notation. In this part, I had to call it an inverse because this wasn't a function. Here, I call it f -1x because it is now a function.